Last time I did not make the video I intended to. This time we are going to look at Groo Friends and Foes issue number 2. Sword, 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 sword. Sword. Hi, my name is Darren, these are my hands, and this is GrooTube, where we appreciate the art of Sergio Aragonés. Today, Dark Horse Comics, Groo Friends and Foes, issue number 2. We're going to look at the inside and appreciate ourselves some Sergio Aragonés. But how did we get here, and what is Friends and Foes all about? Friends and Foes is a 12-part mini-series, a maxi-series, that was written by Sergio Aragonés and published by Dark Horse in 2015 and 2016 over the course of 13 months. Starting in January of 2015, one comic was published every month until November of 2015. December was skipped, and issue number 12 came out in January of 2016. And according to the inside cover of issue number 1, Groo has friends and Groo has foes. And if you have trouble telling them apart sometimes, imagine how tough it is for someone with his limited, that is to say non-existent, brain capacity. As the Wanderer wanders, he has but one true unquestioning friend, a small spotted dog. Everyone else can come down in either category, depending on their particular fears and schemes of the moment. So, as he roams about, doing whatever he thinks he does best, see if you can classify those he encounters. Is this person a friend or a foe? One thing is certain, Groo hasn't a clue. So in issue number 1, Groo and Rufferto encounter Captain Ajax, and in issue number 2, Groo meets Granny Groo again. We've already taken a look at the cover, so let's open her up and see what we've got inside. And look at how this comic starts. This, I think, is wonderful. We've got the minstrel narrating the story, and Sergio has drawn his narration in this wonderful illustrated speech balloon. I love how the minstrel's song is written on this scroll within the speech balloon, but all around the speech balloon are drawings of little Groo and Granny Groo and even Gruella back from Groo's childhood. I can almost imagine Sergio not even including the poem scroll and just drawing the history of Groo in the speech bubble. That would be very, very neat to see. And it's fun to read a shortened version of the story of the life of Groo, told in just a few lines here about Groo's parents sending Groo to live with his granny and how life with her didn't work out to Granny Groo's expectations. A really nice first page. And then, as we open it up, it's just like back in the olden days where we are treated to a 2-page splash. Captain Ajax's ship is sinking in the harbor, and Ajax is being taken away by the King soldiers, and Groo and Rufferto walk free. In case you missed my video where I took a look at all the covers of Friends and Foes, Michael Atiyeh is actually coloring this particular issue. Tom Luth colors many, but Michael covers some. And as I look at Michael's work, not to criticize it, I notice that he uses a slightly different palette and perhaps has a bit of a heavier hand than Tom Luth does. When I look at Groo's skin tone, it looks a little darker. When I look at some of the other colors, they seem a bit brighter. I think that Michael's tendency is to be a little bit more saturated with his colors than Tom. Take a look at this pig in puce. That is one neon porker. I don't think that we would see Tom coloring pigs like that. Something else I also notice, and I can see it a bunch on this page, is that Michael Atiyeh's choice of hair color for Groo actually seems lighter. So slightly darker skin, slightly lighter hair than what Tom would normally choose. And Groo's jerkin might actually be a bit more on the yellow side than the orange that we're used to. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but it's something that I notice. So quickly, Groo encounters Granny Groo's family. She is in a nearby town, and her family is concerned that Granny finds out as soon as possible. Groo himself recalls his years growing up with Granny Groo, and of one particular instance where he brought a baby dragon home. A baby dragon will feature prominently in upcoming stories in the Friends and Foes series. And when I look at this dragon in particular, I see a lot of saturated colors and severe complementary colors. Like, look at the reddy-orange underside of these dragons and compare it to the green from the top. It just seems like a color combination that I'm not used to looking at from Tom. Not a bad job coloring, just different. As Groo comes to Granny Groo's encampment, a fire breaks out. It's really not Groo's fault, but of course he gets blamed for it. And Granny's family says Granny needs to deal with Groo. In that nearby village, Granny is doing her best to make a profit at the expense of the villagers, but the villagers know of her conniving ways and won't have anything to do with it. In fact, they threaten to burn down her encampment, and as she leaves the village, she notices that her wagons are indeed on fire. Of course, Groo is blamed for it, but Granny thinks that perhaps Groo can make them some money after all. The people of the village know of Groo's reputation and fear him, and Granny works on hatching a plan to separate the villagers and their coppins using Groo. These 3 panels on this page are a particularly nice use of parallelism in Sergio's storytelling, not just through the dialogue, but through the layout of the panels. The setup is in the first panel, and the second 2 panels show this parallelism. When the villagers meet together, they know they must do something, as does Granny's family, because Groo is going to destroy their camp, and the villagers fear that he will destroy the town. Nobody is safe, and both the villagers and Granny Groo's family decide they must find a way to be rid of Groo. Even the various people across the panels are in similar positions. Very nicely drawn. And of course, you know that I love me a good campfire scene, where the colors get darker and the hatching comes in farther away from the fire. So Granny's scheme is to hold an auction where the winning person wins Groo. Groo is instructed to do nothing, but the man who does win Groo plans to swindle the other townspeople out of many goods and services under the threat of sending Groo, his bodyguard, after them. Groo continues to do nothing. Granny and her family pack up the coppins in their caravan and plan to leave when this little girl named Kaylee, who was looking for her father, arrives. Granny offers to take little Kaylee in, where she can help earn the family money and potentially find her father as they travel about. And as Groo continues to do nothing, his owner reaps the rewards. Something I'd like to point out, this pig is a much more naturally colored pig than that neon pink pig we saw earlier. As Groo gets bored with doing nothing, he eventually falls asleep, only waking up to hear his owner speak of Groo destroying the village. That excites Groo, and he immediately lays waste to the town, a classic pose of Groo doing what Groo does best. And a nice silhouette down in this panel. As his owner cries for Groo's protection, Groo remembers Granny told him to do nothing. So the villagers chase him away, and Groo assumes his freedom again. The story ends with Groo and Rufferto wandering again. A beginning, a middle, and a finale to the story, all in one comic book. Things are as they should be again at the end, and Groo walks away with the sun setting behind him. This is a really nice final panel. As I've said before, I love it when Sergio uses hatch marks to show shadow, and Michael Atiyeh has some really nice colors in this sunset. Groo wonders what old friends he might run into, as Rufferto thinks, I do not care. I am with the only friend that matters. And that's why we love you, Rufferto. And of course, the back of the comic features a Rufferto short, with no good deed going unpunished. So there we go. Groo, Friends and Foes, issue number 2 from 2015 featuring Granny Groo. If you enjoy plumbing the depths of Sergio Aragonés art with me, make sure that you're subscribed and that you have notifications turned on, because I will be back again soon. Probably not with more Friends and Foes right away, but with more GrooTube. Take care, everyone.